Add to stream. Oh, there we go. Maybe that did it. Did that do it, guys? Do I have sound now? Paul Veska? How about now, guys? Did that work? Conflict, no sound. I see that, but let's see. Do. From Pennsylvania. Sound yet? Guys, no sound? Mic, unmute mic.
I think you do have sound now.
All right. Sound now. All right. It works, Paul Beska says. Okay. So, all right. I apologize, guys. We are trying to figure out this this new audio system, and I guess there is a button there that I did not click. So let's do this again. All right. Greetings. Welcome to Conflict Radio. Today is September 2nd, 2021. And today on the show, we've got Scott Mitchell. He is a mind-opening Bible teacher and host of Bible Mysteries podcast. Scott has been a student of the Bible, Bible history, and Bible mysteries for 40 years. His careers have spanned music, legal support, and technology. He currently pastors Grace Family Bible Church in Seguin, Texas. Scott, welcome to Conflict Radio. How are you today?
Well, I'm doing well, and I'm glad we got the audio working. It's glad to be back with your listeners.
Yeah. Well, we love having you on, and I wanted to try to we have discussed the fact that the fallen angels are piloting these UFOs, and how they've built the tech and everything. We've talked about that, and if anybody wants to get into that, you should go to one of our earlier episodes. And I think one day, Scott, we'll have to just kind of just do like a re-show. We'll hash everything out. But my question is today that we haven't addressed so far is fallen angels and what is their end game. So let me take a sec to give a shout out here to everybody who patiently waited for the stream to start. Happy Plague Doctor's here. Dr. Strangelove is in the house. Paul Beska's here. Akram Musa, Hugh Godarn, JoJo's. I see Jersey Dolphins. Welcome to the show. Antonio's in the house. Will Carr, how you doing? ML. A lot of the David Gray, a lot of our, just straight up, man, we got some really loyal followers on this show. How's the sound, everybody? I guess the sound's working now. I guess everything's up. Peter Steins is here. Lightning Rod, hello from Thunder Bay, he says. There, look, I can put that up on the screen there. All right, so let me ask you this, Scott. What is their end game? What is it that the fallen angels are trying to do with humanity right now? What is their game? What's their goal?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's I know you and your listeners, Michael, are going to be familiar with the term cognitive dissonance. Is that something you've discussed in other episodes?
No, I don't think we've discussed that yet. But that's pretty much like, you don't have, no, the stupid don't worry, right?
Well, it's more of a psychologically deeper explanation that I'm not going to attempt to give since I'm not qualified. But the bottom line for me is sometimes you can see a truth and it's so hard to believe that you rationalize it away and say the falsehood must be true because that cannot possibly be right since it's so hard to accept. And I think the world, for the most part, has fallen into cognitive dissonance about the fact that there is a spiritual battle going on all around us. And we're pointing fingers at politicians or this group or that group, and the satanic global elite is trying to pit us against each other because we want an easy explanation. Well, we pulled out of Afghanistan because our president's stupid or they're incompetent, or we did this over here because these people are stupid. And that is not the case. We have to go back to the beginning to realize that there was a time before man was created that the sons of God, which were angelic beings, occupied this planet. And perhaps the legends of Atlantis and those kind of things come from that ancient history, and there's some truth therein. But at some point, there was an individual on this planet who was an angel that was the king of this planet, and his name was Lucifer. Well, we all sort of know the story. There was a rebellion. Lucifer decided he wanted more than his position, and he actually wanted to be God. So he and a number of the angels rebelled against God in the hopes that they could defeat him, and they lost. And the ensuing chaos is the world, or the earth, and the condition we find it in the very beginning of the book of Genesis, chapter 1, verse 2. It's without form and void. There's darkness and there's water. So essentially, God flooded that planet and brought out of it the creation that we know today, and made man, and gave man dominion of the earth, basically taking it away from Lucifer and his angels and giving it to humanity. Well, Lucifer's been angry ever since, and he's been trying to get it back. He wants control of the planet. He has it politically, in a sense, but he's limited in what he can do by God himself. So he acts through his proxies, which are human beings or certain elements of the natural world. A perfect example of that is in the book of Job, and we can talk about that later if you want to.
All right.
So ultimately, he wants control back of the planet that God gave to man. He cannot stand humanity, and his aim is to disrupt everything God is doing. Well, from the beginning, he gained control in a sense, sort of in a spiritual way, by causing man to sin in what we know as original sin and introduce sin into the human condition. So therefore, death would occur, and man wasn't supposed to die. We were supposed to live forever. So death, because of sin, brought about the temporal existence of humanity, in that we only live so many years. That's going to change at some point. But during that time, when he gained that kind of control, God pronounced that he would defeat him in the future with a prophecy of a seed of the woman that would come and bruise his head. So Satan set about to stop or prevent the seed from ever being born. And his first incursion for that was to have Cain kill his brother Abel, because he thought Abel might be the seed of the woman that would bruise him. Cain was of the wicked one, so he was the proxy of Satan to destroy the righteous, the first persecution. Then man began to populate on the earth so much that it was impossible to pinpoint which individual might be the seed that would destroy him. So he infiltrated the planet in Genesis 6 with the fallen angels. He convinced them to take wives. They married them, had children by them, and they were known as the giants. And they corrupted the gene pool of humanity. That is what the end game is in the end times that are coming. He's going to do a similar thing again. This time he can't prevent the seed of the woman from coming. That's Christ. He's already been born and redeemed humanity. So his next attack is to prevent humanity from being able to be redeemed. And the way he's going to do that is to genetically mix the human genome again with fallen angel DNA and turn us into something other than human, so that we cannot be redeemed. And that's everything to do with the so-called mark of the beast.
All right. So, I mean, we've talked about this on past shows where if you're a Nephilim, or if you have fallen angel DNA mixed with your DNA, you can't go to heaven, right? Is that how that works?
Well, that seems to be the pattern here, because the angels that sinned, the ones that actually committed the transgression of taking the daughters of men to wife, were thrown in chains in the bottomless pit, according to the book of Jude and the book of 2 Peter. They await a judgment. The offspring of those angels were the hybrid Nephilim, the giants. They were part human but part angel. They were killed and destroyed in the flood of Noah. There was no offer of redemption for them. And in fact, we believe they became the disembodied spirits that today people refer to as demons or devils. And then humanity, the only pure bloodline was that of the family of Noah. And since giants showed up later
Really,
in the
like
land
on
of
the
Canaan,
the
many
entire.
years ago.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but on the what you're saying is on the entire planet Earth, the only pure human was Noah. Everybody else was corrupted with their DNA was corrupted in some way.
Noah and his family.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it appears, and if when you turn to Genesis chapter 6, the way it's worded in verse 5, we read, and God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. We know there's evil in the world today, and we know there's bad people. But is every thought of every imagination of every person only evil continually? That's an extreme condition to be in. How did it get that bad? It says that the earth was filled with violence. And God, it says, they repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. So he decided to destroy mankind altogether, including man and beast and the creeping thing and the fowls of the air. He said, it repenteth me that I have made them. So the angels corrupted everything God made, humanity and the animal kingdom, so that chimeras, as we understand, like centaurs or minotaurs or whatever, cyclops, those kind of things, there's probably some truth to that, if not outright true. And so he says in verse 9, these are the generations of Noah. Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations. And Noah walked with God. He seems to be the only one that did. Well, perfect in his generations means his genetic makeup was not tainted. And he had 3 sons that were also the same. But in verse 11, he says, the earth also was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. And God looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. God's way was that a dog would produce more dogs, a cat produced cats, humans produce humans. The angels messed with that, and they introduced these
angels.
crossover things. The fallen angels. We're only talking about the Luciferic angels.
Yeah, okay.
And the result was, he says, the end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them. And behold, I will destroy them with the earth. Well, them are the fallen angels. They taught man how to be awful to each other. And in fact, the giants themselves, the offsprings, began to actually consume humanity. They became cannibalizing creatures. So that whole thing had to go. And that's why the reason for the flood and the destruction of all mankind. Why just save 9 people, or 8 people, I should say, and 2 of every kind of animal? You know, God's spirit must have been used to gather the pure, clean animals that were not tainted with some sort of genetic experiment, which I think Satan and his angels have continued to do throughout history in some form, perhaps currently by the so-called abductions.
All right. Let me give I guess we're starting to get full up with people in here. Everybody hit that like button because it does help the algorithm and does help get more people into the live show. That's really awesome. You know, I love that I've got this thing here now where I can click on. It says, Dr. Strangelove says, thanks to the snake in the garden, everyone here can understand tonight's show. So that's where we are. So let me ask you this, Pastor. We've got, I mean, obviously it's, if they're going to manipulate our DNA, and I'm trying to think of the best way to put this forward, if they're trying to manipulate our DNA, let's say, for instance, it works. Let's say something happens, they do something, I go and get something that everybody wants me to get, or something like that, and it's kind of like a hint there, and my DNA is changed. Am I now a demon? Am I going to be? Am I now going to be a demon?
And no, you wouldn't be a demon. So
I mean,
we're
when I
looking
die,
at,
I'll be a demon, right?
say again?
When I die, I'd be a demon.
Well, you're not going to exist in that form, because I think when the destruction of those that take this mark is what you're talking about, and I'm going to get to that in a moment.
All right.
When the Lord comes back, there's going to be a judgment of all who took the mark, and they're going to immediately be judged and cast into the lake of fire. So whatever you ultimately end up being, you're still the person that took this mark, but you're going to end up in the judgment of the lake of fire. So it's not like you're going to be able to run around and haunt people or do something. You're at that point, your judgment has been set. So what we're really talking about is ultimately,
but you
there's
said that the Nephilim, the human alien hybrids, they're demons, right? I mean, their soul, like when they die, their souls become demons, right?
they became the disembodied spirit, but there's not going to be an opportunity for that to happen again.
So it's too late.
That took place back in Genesis 6.
If you're a demon, then there's going to be no more new demons, is what you're saying?
I don't believe there's going to be new demons. Although you could say there's certain people on this planet that are demon controlled, but it's the same demons that have been around since that time, the time of the flood.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's interesting.
So and what it all ties together is this: the whole topic of your discussion tonight was, what is their end game? The end game is ultimately Satan is going to be cast out of his realm that he's in right now. It's called heaven, and we can say whatever dimensional realm you want to refer to it as, but there'll be a battle between God's angels and these fallen angels, and those fallen angels are going to lose. When they are cast down to the earth and limited or confined to this planet in a way they have not been confined until then, they will appear in some form to deceive the world into thinking that they've come to better humanity. So I truly believe that they're going to appear as fallen, or rather as aliens of some kind. And as a matter of fact, have you ever heard of the Galactic Federation?
Yeah. That's it. The Israel guy came out and talked about that.
Yeah, I don't know the name of anybody, but I know that they purport to be representatives of so-called aliens from other planets, the Pleiades or whatever. And in fact, some of them think that they might be the hybrid offspring of aliens and humans, or they're the mouthpiece for particular.
The fallen angels think that they're aliens?
What I'm saying is the Galactic Federation is basically giving us the scenario of what is probably going to be the deception that's coming. Aliens are going to appear and say, we seeded you many millennia ago. You were monkeys and we added to your DNA, our DNA, and you're really our offspring, and we're ready to bring you to your next phase of evolution.
Yeah,
this is everything the Galactic Federation is talking about, only they say it's aliens. I say it's not. It's the fallen angels.
Yeah, you're talking about like a false alien invasion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the paradigm that's going to be purported to be the truth, but it's not, because something monumental has to appear on this planet to convince all the world's population to take and worship the beast, whoever this person is. Now, you look at the disparity of religion in the world today between the Jew, the Muslim, the Christian, the Buddhist, the Taoist, the Shinto, whatever. And there's no way they're all going to come together and agree on a single God or a single entity to worship, unless something unimaginably powerful could occur on this planet to make us erase thousands of years of religious dogma and turn our attention towards a single individual who claims to be God and accept the truth that he is God. What could that possibly be? The only thing I could think of is that suddenly would appear superior advanced technology from other planets, and they're saying, hey, we're here to better mankind or whatever. Take this mark. It might be a stamp. It might be an injection. It might be a microchip. Who knows what technology will be at the time. And when those human beings take this mechanism of a deliverance of something, I believe they're going to be genetically changed, because those that take the mark cannot be saved. Therefore, it must mean that there's something about their humanity that changes. And hence the push right now for post-humanism, transhumanism, all the genetic experimentation that's going on that most of us don't even know how bad it is and how deep it goes, and the incorporation of AI and biometrics. All of this is going to play into the great deception that's coming.
All right. So let me ask you this. All right. I understand that the fallen angels want to control humanity, and they want to, I guess, enslave us and this, that, and other thing. But what kind of world do they want to live in? Do they want to live in like an apocalyptic type world, or do they want to live in a, you know what I mean? Like I get that they want to enslave us, but do they want to enslave us in a smoldering, like, world on fire type of, like the picture I'm showing on the YouTube stream, or do they want like forests and stuff and green fields? They just want us to be their slaves.
Well, I think the mistake is in reasoning that their aim is to enslave us. That's not the objective. Mankind is already enslaved to sin and Satan. From a spiritual perspective, you see the results of sin in the history of mankind: war, death, destruction, murder, rape, kidnapping, you name it, abuse, all of the sexual perversion. All of this has gone on for a long time now. Man has been a slave to sin since it was brought into the human experience. Satan and his angels don't necessarily want to enslave man. They want us to worship them and worship Satan as God. So if they could have their way, if they could have control of humanity and somehow defeat the creator of heaven and earth, they would try to remake the world in their image, whatever that might be. And they're twisted and they're arrogant. And you have to understand that these are created beings that have been around for untold ages. It's not like they're 6,000 years old. They could be millions of years old. So ultimately, man is a blip. They don't care about humanity. They don't care who they kill. They just as soon stomp on you as you walk on an ant. What they want is the creation. They want to gain back the control that they had before there was even such a thing as man.
All right. So they're millions of years old, but according to the Bible, they're gonna lose, right? Like, is there a chance that they won't lose? You know what I'm saying? Like, I understand that we're on the side that we want to win and we're supposed to win, you know, in the end, but is that guaranteed?
Yes, that's the great news about it, because everything we're talking about, remember, my podcast is Bible Mystery. So I try to look at everything through the lens of Scripture. And what I see is Satan's furious that God tricked him in providing a means of salvation through Jesus Christ. That was the seed of the woman that would ultimately come to redeem mankind. God is only offering humanity salvation, and he wants to reunite us into his family because we separated ourselves from that family. You think about the countless number of angels that did not rebel against God. Those are your brothers, your ancient family. And, you know, the whole story of the prodigal son, are you familiar with that parable of the prodigal son, where the rich man had two sons and one said, "Give me all my inheritance," and he went away?
Yeah.
And he squandered it to sinful living and ended up starving to death in a pig's sty. And he said, hey, I was better off at home with the servants of my father than I am out here. And so he goes back, and the father accepts him and welcomes him home and kills the fatted calf, and they have a party. Well, the son that never left said, I've served you all these years and never asked for a thing. Why does he get a party and I don't? And the father said, hey, everything that I have is yours. But he was lost, your brother, and now he's found, and it's time to rejoice. So the focus is always on the prodigal son. He's the representation of man, and the swineherder is a representation of Satan. And sin brought him to the condition that he was in, and he rioted and rebelled. But through redemption, he came back to the Father, who's represented by God. But you know who the other brother represents, who never left the household? The faithful angels. And they're going to rejoice and welcome us back into the family, because ultimately they've been waiting for us. The Bible says the angels rejoice over one sinner that's lost in heaven. So you know that they're grateful to see their sisters and brothers coming back to them, even though they are ancient compared to us. We're going to spend eternity together with them. So that's the promise, that Christ redeemed mankind, and the Lord himself is going to return to stop this onslaught of the angelic incursion back into this planet, because there's going to be he's going to allow it to go far enough to see how many men, humanity, will join ranks with Lucifer in this final act of war against God. And then Christ himself is going to come back and destroy the Antichrist, the beast, the angels, and Satan himself is going to be bound with a chain and thrown into the bottomless pit for 1,000 years. And the earth is going to go into a time of basically rest. It's the Sabbath, or the 7th 1,000-year period of the earth history, human history. And during that time, we'll go back to living upwards of hundreds of years. We will, animals won't kill one another, like lions won't eat lambs. They'll lay down together. The nations will not make war. They're going to beat their swords into plowshares, spears into pruning hooks.
What would the lions eat then?
What they ate before they became carnivores, the herb of the field. In the original creation, the animals didn't eat one another. They were all vegetarian. So is man, by the way. So,
well, I don't doubt that. I think our teeth aren't really made for. Well, I mean, maybe, I don't know. You know, I don't know. Smooth 420 says, "Why would we win if we're the evil ones? Humanity will fail."
Well, we're not the evil ones. Mankind can be evil, and sin brings about that, or evil brought about sin, if you want. But Christ offers redemption to any who will trust him. And he paid a price so that our sin could be carried by his sacrifice. So we receive, in exchange for our sin being imputed to Christ, we receive his righteousness. And therefore we are accepted by adoption into the family of God. So Christ will save anybody that will trust him as their savior.
All right. Distortion of reality says we are their food. But all right. So let's talk about current events a little bit. I mean, and I'm going to go here, and whatever happens to my channel happens to the channel, I suppose. So we have this thing going on with, you know, Trump and the alliance, right, versus the cabal and the deep state, right? Is that a real thing? Is that really happening?
What alliance are you speaking of with Trump?
The white hats, the you know, the good guys that are fighting the deep state. You know, like the Mike Lindells and the Trumps and all these guys, and you know, QAnon talks about it, and or I'm not QAnon, but Q. I mean, you know, this whole battle that's going on between the alliance and the cabal, and how the whole world's coming together, and we're all opening our eyes, and we're all seeing what's really going on with the deep state, how they have this uniparty, these rhino Republicans with the Democrats. It's all the same party. They're just all out for themselves and enriching themselves, and Trump's fighting this establishment, political establishment and everything else. And the chess game and everything, how it's over now, and this, that, and other thing. Now, what's your take on all of that? Is that happening, do you think? Or is that just
No.
more smoke and mirrors?
It's smoke and mirrors. It's absolute BS. Trump isn't any more going to save this country than I can flap my arms and fly to the moon. He's just another man that failed.
So
and QAnon was a deep state hoax, as far as I'm concerned, to convince people not to rebel.
Yeah,
that's my opinion.
Like don't worry about it. We got it covered, right?
Oh yeah. Hey, don't rise up. Don't, patriots. Y'all just sit tight. Trust the plan. Where one we go all. Well, that's a bunch of crap. That was designed to deceive people into getting complacent and waiting. And the reports never came, and AG Barr deceived us, and Pence deceived us, and they're all snakes. You have no idea how deep the deep state goes. It's deeper than that. I'm not saying that I can prove that Trump is one of them, but he did nothing to stop this thing from happening. He surrounded himself with people from the neocons and the deep state. So as far as I'm concerned, if he was supposed to be the prince on the white horse, he was a dismal failure. And I say that as a man who voted for him.
Okay.
Yeah. To be
I mean,
fair.
that's interesting. I mean, if that's true, then we're totally screwed. We're in this. There is no so there's no way really that humanity can turn this around. This has got to go this way, right? Like it's over.
It's back to the cognitive dissonance. We want to find succor in a politician, in a leader, in a great king to come along and save us all. It's not going to happen from a man. And so we keep ignoring this spiritual realm as though it's just a flight of fancy. Well, that's how the ancients thought. They believed in goblins and spooks and whatever. And we're ignoring the fact that these satanic global elites, some of them may already be genetic hybrids for all we know. We're talking about an extremely powerful race of beings, if you want to call it that, these fallen angels, who's already gained control of the planet through their proxies, the satanic global elite. The only hope man has, Christ. God himself is going to put these enemies out here. The Bible says over and over again, don't put your trust in men. Don't put your trust in princes. Don't put your trust in armies. And we continue to do so, thinking that maybe if we vote this guy in or that woman in, we're finally going to get things straight. It is a pipe dream. And as a matter of fact, in the new world, in the kingdom, there's not going to be democratic republics. It's all kingdoms.
Yeah, it's all going to be like the CCP, right?
No, it's going to be like I'm talking about when the Lord comes back. He's going to establish an absolute monarchy, but he's the perfect king. He's the perfect judge. He's going to reign in righteousness. There will be justice. There will be peace. There will be love and mercy and kindness that we've never known before, because man's heart is corrupted, because satanic angels and his other principalities and minions like demons and what have you are manipulating mankind and deceiving them through politics, among other things.
So
through science, academia, through religion.
All right. Now you said that God is going to come and he's going to unify the earth, and there's not going to be any more elections, right? There's not going to be any more leaders of this country, leaders of that country, right? It's all gonna
There will be leaders, but they're going to be kings.
Okay, so what's the difference between a king and a president? I mean, or a king and a dictator.
Well, what's the difference? Well, what can a king be a benevolent king and a righteous ruler, or can he, does that make him a dictator just because he's a king?
Oh, I mean, I don't know. I mean,
So God is the king, he's the king of the universe. I suspect Satan's plan would be to convince mankind that he's a dictator so that we would rebel against him. But he's the creator of heaven and earth, and he's the king of the universe. Jesus Christ is the King of kings and Lord of lords. He's coming back to give crowns to those that serve, who will be, you were faithful over little, be thou ruler over much. He's going to hand out reign to those, and we're going to reign with him, whoever we are. So there's going to be kingdoms. We can't comprehend a kingdom of righteousness because we've never known one. One has never existed on the earth because man is sinful. We can't conceive of a world in which sin is curtailed, or eventually sin will not exist. But that's what Christ offers, and that's what God's kingdom offers.
But that's not going to come until after like a World War III, really, right?
World War III would be child's play compared to what's coming. Because what's coming is the wrath of God upon this earth. And according to Isaiah 24, the earth is literally going to shift in its place, poles shifting now north to south. It says the earth shall reel to and fro like a drunkard, and a man will be as rare as the gold of Ophir. In other words, climate change, you kidding me, right? God's about to pour his wrath out upon this satanic global elite because of these fallen angels are involved, and all of mankind that joins with them in this rebellion, they're going to be destroyed and consumed in this. So the nations that are left, the remnant of those that survived this time, are going to go into the kingdom of heaven, where Christ will reign on the earth for 1,000 years, and he is an absolute monarch at that time. But there'll be peace, safety, healing from all diseases, and there's going to be love and joy and everything else that it's the utopia mankind says he can generate through socialism and communism. But it won't be socialism or communism.
All right. So how do you think, let's look at, take for example, all of these people that follow Trump and hang on every word that he says, right? Most of them are very religious people. Can we agree on that?
I guess.
Right? Like, I mean, they're the Bible people, fix our election people, everything else. They're the ones that believe in God mostly. They're the churchgoers, the Trump supporters. So how are they going to accept a God coming and saying, okay, well, we're just not going to have elections anymore. We're just going to have kings. And that's not going to go over too well with the religious people, is it? Or will the religious people just be like, okay, well, that's God, so.
It's hard for me to put that question into perspective, Michael, because it's coming from such a standpoint of not realizing what the kingdom of heaven is all about. So you're like comparing apples with oranges here. Religion has been deceiving people for centuries. Christian religion has been deceiving people for centuries. Satan has control of that too. So it wouldn't surprise me if Trump or anybody else like him is a plant to deceive them more. Okay. But you're talking, when the Lord comes back, you're not going to question God, the creator's plan for mankind. It's not like you could say, hey, I want democracy. I don't want you to be my king. How are you going to tell the creator of heaven and earth, I'm sorry, I don't like your tie? It's not, I can't even fathom that thought, because if you're saved and in Christ, you're a part of God's kingdom. You want to be there. So you're talking about the never Trumpers and everything as though they wouldn't accept Christ as their king.
No, not the never Trumpers. I'm talking about the actual Trumpers.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's what I meant. I meant the Trumpers. If they're Christians, they've already accepted Christ as their king. They want the same thing I'm talking about. Do you think they would prefer Trump over Christ? I mean, I don't.
Well, I mean, if
Sometimes I wonder, are they just enough?
if you put those two on a ballot, they might have to scratch their heads a little bit, I'm sure, right?
That would be sad. I mean, I'm laughing because it's such a funny picture, but I think you've kind of hit the nail on the head of something, Michael, that sometimes these well-meaning Christians are getting entangled due to cognitive dissonance into thinking that the political system can work for them. It's not going to work. It's a deception. You cannot vote these bastards out. They are satanically controlled, soulless things that have given their, and I'm not talking about Trump. I'm not talking about every politician. I'm talking about the ones who are the puppet masters,
Yeah.
who pull the strings, who own George Soros and Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos and all the rest of them. These are people that, for all we know, may already be hybrids. It goes so far deeper than most people realize. That's why I say,
do you think the deep state knows that they're doing the devil's work, or do you think that they're confused themselves?
Which level are you talking about?
Well,
the rank and file deep state, they're willing accomplices or ignorant patsies. Most of the people, let's say, if we talk about left and right, okay, let's say the people that support things like Antifa or BLM or any number of leftist organizations, most of them are ignorant, emotional, manipulated patsies. The politicians that are driving them are more knowledgeable. They're sociopaths that are controlling them and take advantage of them. They don't care about these people. They don't care about Black lives or anything like that. They're just after power. And the ones who manipulate them and bribe them, such as oligarchs, they may very well be knowledgeable Satanists. But the ones who control them, you're talking about the high end of the food chain. These are people that could buy or sell Warren Buffett 10 times over.
Do you think that they're
for a long time?
Do you think that they are meeting with the fallen angels? That they actually have meetings?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I believe that's exactly what happened to the Third Reich and why Germany had such advanced technology at the end of World War II. By the grace of God, they were defeated. But when our guys got in there, and that's what Operation Paperclip was all about. We went in to get their technology, and it was so advanced we couldn't understand it. So we had to basically steal their scientists and bring them over here, so they could interpret the stuff. And incidentally, isn't it ironic that right after World War II, a UFO crash lands in Roswell, New Mexico, and is taken to Wright-Patterson to reverse engineer? We shifted from the Nazis in Germany to the Nazis in the CIA.
Well, there are people that suggest that the Roswell crash was actually ours. That it was a test. That it was a crash test flight. It was something we were already building.
It's possible.
Yeah,
but I don't think so. I think there could have been actually Antarctic bases that the Germans had down there. I think there could be bases down there now, for all we know. Nobody's allowed to go down there easily, or at least not penetrate the major part of the continent. And so, you're seeing the footage of declassified flying objects that defy any physics that we understand or any propulsion systems that we could generate even today. And there's no way that's coming from us. There's no way that could be a manned craft. A human being would be destroyed with that kind of G-force. Turning on a dime like that at, 4,000 miles per hour or whatever it is. So ultimately what you're talking about is advanced technology, but it's not extraterrestrial, it's hyperdimensional. It's the craft that Ezekiel saw in chapter 1 of his book and chapter 10. It's the wheels. It's the, in this case, it's the satanic fallen angels that are interfering with mankind. And they've been setting you talk about the deep state. It's not just our FBI and CIA and NSA and the CDC and the NIH and all the rest of the liars. It's so far above that. The only possible hope mankind has is in Jesus Christ. At least that's
What
my
is
opinion.
it? What is it going to take then to get everybody on board? I mean, do you foresee a time where we go back to just the basics of living? Like we'll have no electricity, no computers, no long distance travel really without a horse and a buggy. Like I mean, I'm talking way back, like technology wise, that we're going to have to take a massive step back to come about a better planet, so to speak.
Well, I don't know that we're going to become a
I
better
mean,
planet because of a reduction of technology.
God's not going to come down and rule the earth and have a Twitter account, right?
Yeah, I don't think he is. As a matter of fact, you bring up an interesting point, Michael, because everything that talks about the final battles in the book of Revelation and the books of prophecy like Daniel and such talk about these battles being fought on horseback with swords and spears and arrows. So it's very possible that between now and those days, when it becomes the final battles of Armageddon and the beast and the false prophet and Christ, it's very possible that something like a nuclear weapon is going to be launched that's going to release an electromagnetic pulse that could render certain countries basically back to the primitive times.
It could be, it could be a massive solar flare. I mean, we don't have. I mean, our electromagnetic field isn't anywhere near what it was just 20 years ago. I mean, we get one good solar flare and that's it. That's it.
I agree with you. And as a matter of fact, as I understand it, we're entering into a phase of the sun that's known as a solar minimum, where in fact, the opposite of what they're saying is going to happen. Everybody's talking about global warming, but it's going to be a cooling period. And that means you're going to have a shorter growing season and food shortages and things like that. So that may be coming. But let's say that's true and we have a solar minimum and we have milder summers and colder winters. And then all of a sudden a solar flare decides to act back up again in a time of a solar minimum. Can you imagine the damage that could do?
Yeah. Man, it just seems like there's all kinds of threats. Let's not forget we're losing the moon, right?
How are we losing it? I haven't heard about this one. You'll have to share.
Well, it's going away. It's going away an inch a year. It's getting farther away from the Earth every year, like an inch.
Oh, I haven't heard of that. That's interesting.
Yeah, so that'll eventually be gone. Do you think the moon is an actual body, or do you think it's possible that that's a spaceship itself?
Now, I believe the moon is a created body that God made. According to the Bible, the ordinance of the sun and the moon will continue forever. So whether it moves away an inch a year or not, it's never going to leave its orbit, because according to God, even in the new heaven and the new earth, which he is going to make a new earth, the sun and the moon will be there as well. And it will continue to give us day and night, and they're going to be for seasons and signs and times.
All right, let me give a shout out to Gutter Gawker, who just became a new member of the channel. You now have access to all of our private unlisted videos. I hope you enjoy them. Welcome to the members area of Conflict Radio. Hope you enjoy it. I hope Jersey Dolphins, you're also a member. Pretty new, I guess. Hopefully you're enjoying yourself in there. I guess we should let me open up the floor up for questions for everybody. I guess we're getting into the last half hour show here in just a little bit. So if you guys have any questions, go ahead and put it in caps, and I'll ask Scott, and we'll get on here. Right. So I guess Smooth 420 says, how far does it have to be before we start to feel its effects? And I'm not sure. Do you know what he's talking about there? When he's talking about the moon leaving?
I don't know if he's talking about the moon. I took it to be everything we're discussing. So Smooth 420, unless you want to clarify, I'm going to run with what I think you mean, which is how far along is it going to be before he is saying the moon. Yeah, I couldn't tell you the answer to that, because I'm not aware of the moon is going to leave of any significant amount. If it's leaving by an inch a year, it would be thousands of years before you would notice something. It's 273,000 miles away from the Earth. So an inch a year, I mean, how far, if it moved a mile out, how long would it take to get there?
Yeah.
That would be a lot.
Yeah, it'll take a while. All right. So Jay Training says, do you believe in an alien invasion?
Yes, I do, except they're not aliens. They're fallen angels.
All right. Two Hats wants to know, y'all still believe we went to the moon? Do you think we went? You think we actually went there?
I have no credible proof to say we did not, but it would not surprise me if we discovered that it was a hoax. I'm not telling you I believe it was a hoax. It wouldn't shock me that maybe we don't have the ability to go past the Van Nuys belts in a rocket. I'm not enough of a scientist to be able to tell you that I can give you any credible evidence for that. So I reserve judgment for that one.
All right. Distortion of Reality says, does the pastor believe in Planet X?
Not sure which planet is Planet X. Is it
I
one
guess
of the
Nibiru,
9 planets
right?
in our solar system?
Yeah, one of the hidden ones that's supposed to be coming like every 6,000 years or something.
Oh, there's bound to be hidden planets. Yeah, I definitely believe that. And I also think that it's very possible that even the planets within our solar system at one point may have been habitable planets prior to the wars that began millennia ago between fallen angels and God's angels.
All right. Smooth Player wants to know, are there still fallen ones under the earth?
Fallen ones under the earth. Yes, if you're talking about the angels that sinned in chains and darkness in the abyss or the bottomless pit, then the answer would be yes.
All right. And Distortion of Reality has another one here. Do you think the earth is flat?
I do not. I think it's a sphere, and I think the Bible tells us that it is.
Where does it say in the Bible that it's a sphere? Can you tell us? Do you know?
It refers to the circle of the earth. I'll look it up for you right quick.
I agree with you. I think it's round as well. Well, not round, but kind of like an egg, I guess. Right?
Yeah, and it's funny. The word circle is only used one time in the King James Bible, and it's Isaiah chapter 40. It says, verse 21, have you not known? Have you not heard? Hath it not been told you from the beginning? Have you not understood from the foundations of the earth? It is he that sitteth upon the circle of the earth, and the inhabitants thereof are as grasshoppers, that stretcheth out the heavens as a curtain, and spreadeth them out as a tent to dwell in. And that bringeth the princes to nothing. He maketh the judges of the earth as vanity. So I love that, because God is going to restore all righteousness when he judges the wicked princes of this world. And the princes he's talking about are both human and angels.
All right. Raul Sanchez says, I'm of the belief we are in a simulation. What do you think of that idea? Do you think it's possible that all this is a simulation?
I don't. I respectfully would disagree with it, simply because it's kind of like the theory of evolution, which, by the way, is losing ground more and more as solid science, because the evidence for intelligent design is overwhelmingly true. So rather than say that God created the earth, scientists are going to switch the paradigm from evolution to what we would say alien seeding or extraterrestrial seeding. And that's where it's going. That's where this Galactic Federation stuff comes into the picture. It may seem like kooky stuff now, but it's going to become mainstream thought and taught as science at some point, should there be enough time. So if we talk about us being in a computer simulation, then that means there's somebody of such vast intelligence that's messing and playing with us. And what would be their end game? So in a sense, you could say
they could just be on vacation.
Yeah, right. And the whole program went chaotic, like the Matrix.
Or no, like a lifetime of our entire planet could just be like a week for them.
Yeah, it could be. Well, and it's interesting because the Bible says a day with the Lord is as 1,000 years.
Well, maybe that's your answer.
And 1,000. Yeah.
All right. Do you have an opinion on the Pope? And let me ask you this. Are there 2 popes right now?
I don't know if there's 2 popes. And I mean,
well, the one that resigned, he's still alive, isn't he?
Are you talking about the one that took that was Pope before Francis?
Yeah, Benedict, right? Didn't he resign? You're a pope for life, right?
He did resign. I just wasn't aware whether or not he was alive.
Oh, he's alive, isn't he?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he may be, but I just don't know.
Oh, all right.
So if there two popes, I mean, doesn't matter to me.
All right.
You
So
know,
what about the current one? He's been pretty quiet. We haven't heard
I
much
think he's a
from him
Marxist.
lately. Yeah.
He's a Marxist.
No. So is 80% of our politicians, apparently.
Yeah, exactly. I think he's fitting right in, having the narrative in the same direction that all the other Marxists are, which is, trying to push the world into a position to accept and receive the mark of the beast.
All right. Barry with the
I don't
$4.99.
fault Catholicism for that. I just think he's one of them.
No, I don't disagree with you. Barry with a $4.99 super chat. Thank you so much. Really do appreciate it. Seems that this show is getting more and more support from you guys. I really do appreciate it, man. All the support is greatly appreciated. All right. So Patrick says, do you believe the LHC was the Tower of Babylon in the past?
The LHC. I'm not familiar with that acronym.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what
If
that could be.
Any clarification that might help.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what the heck that stands for, but
yeah, that one's baffling me too.
All right, so you're going to have to clarify that with us, Patrick, what exactly it is.
Yeah, I'd love to answer the question. I just need some help. Oh, Large Hadron Super Collider. Okay, see, I'm not a physicist.
Oh, okay,
that's why I didn't know that. At CERN. Okay, so the question
Just
was,
say CERN,
is the CERN
man.
Super Collider? And what was that question again? Do you mind repeating it for me?
Yeah, do you believe CERN was the Tower of Babylon in the past?
Yeah, that is a fascinating question. Boy, now you've really got my juices flowing here. Because so the Tower of Babel, I do believe, was an attempt by humanity at that time under Nimrod, their dictator, to develop another mechanism to entice the angels to come back down, as they did in Genesis 6. The Tower of Babel story is in Genesis chapter 11. Okay, so if God had to come down and stop the building of this city and this tower, what they were doing must have been more than just building a skyscraper. Because we've got skyscrapers today that no doubt, like in Dubai, would be taller than the tallest building they could have built back then, right? So the Lord said, if we allow this to continue, nothing would be restrained from them, whatever they imagine to do. So I think he's onto something there with that question, because they were probably trying to open up a portal to another realm, which I personally believe the LHC or the CERN Super Collider is doing the exact same thing.
All right.
They're trying to open up a spiritual realm, and it's another means of mankind and the satanic global elite trying to make a connection with the satanic fallen angels and another dimension.
You guys are really getting away with me with these comments here. Hugo Darn says the earth is fixed and immovable. Let's see here. So I'm going to try to get off of the flat earth stuff. Some of you guys really believe in the flat earth, and that's cool. Like we all believe in different things, right? Timbo Rice says, what about the firmament, the dome that separates the waters?
Well, there's nothing that says it's a dome in the Bible. The firmament is, in fact, what you and I would call outer space. And it separates the waters above from the waters below. The waters above are the frozen floor of the third heaven, and the waters beneath are on the earth. So the firmament is where the sun, moon, the stars, and the planets are, and where Satan dwells, by the way. He's not in hell. He's in the heavens. And the frozen deep, or the sea of glass.
Well, he's on Earth, isn't he? Isn't he on the planet?
He has access to the earth, but he's not confined to the earth. And by the way, he's limited in what he can do. You have to understand something. If Satan just wanted to kill you, he'd just kill you. But he can't. He uses his proxies to operate. And again, you can see that in the book of Job. When Satan at one point came before the Lord and he was walking to and fro in the earth, God asked him, have you noticed my servant Job? And Satan said, yeah, attack him and he'll curse you to your face. I'm paraphrasing. So he obviously didn't have permission to do just anything he wanted to. And God said, okay, you can do this, but you can go only so far. So that's a picture of us seeing the limited power that Satan has. He can't just kill people, so he starts a war, or he creates the Holocaust, or he creates a pandemic, or whatever. He has some control over weather too, by the way, since that's what happened to Job's family. Fire came down and a great wind came and destroyed the house. So I suspect Satan can manipulate weather. And if he can, and he's got the technology to do it, who do you think has control of the weather?
CERN.
The
Or
satanic
not
level
CERN,
elite? Yeah,
HARP,
exactly.
right?
That's
Yeah.
that's what it all boils down to.
Do you think
You know?
CERN is opening up the portal into the abyss?
I think that there's an attempt to do so. And I think that in the book of Revelation, the abyss does open and things come out of it that are unspeakably horrifying. So, yeah,
Well,
it's
I
very
mean, that
possible
could
that
be
CERN
that.
is going to be the mechanism God uses to open and unlock the key to the bottomless pit.
So it's basically opening up an interdimensional doorway. It's what they're talking about in the Bible, right? It's literally talking about an interdimensional doorway in the Bible.
I suspect it is.
Wow. All right. Two Hats wants to know, is scientism a religion?
Scientism. Are you talking about Christian Science, or is scientism a different thing?
No, I've got no idea. I haven't heard of scientism myself. I would imagine that that's somebody who's all about science. All right.
Yeah, but that sounds like something particular. I'm just not familiar with it.
Patrick Erickson says, but what if this is God's simulation? Could it be possible that God is actually running the simulation?
I don't believe it's a simulation, because then God would be a liar. If it isn't exactly what he said it was, then he's lied and he's not worthy of our worship.
Well, he didn't
So
really.
if
If it is a simulation, he wouldn't have lied. He's just saying, this is what I made, and here it is. Like, right?
But no, it's not a simulation. If he said he made the planet Earth, then it's not a simulation. It's a planet. If he created man in his image, then man is not a simulation. He's a real being. So what I'm saying is, if we're a simulation, we don't really exist, and therefore God would be a liar.
All right. Vash Wolfwood wants to know, are there pets in heaven?
I know there's animals in heaven. I don't know about pets, but there's definitely animals. And when you think about it, and this is a whole other subject we won't have time to get into, but heaven is not a bunch of us floating on clouds with halos strumming harps like Sylvester the cat, after he gets blown up from trying to eat Tweety Bird.
Yeah.
Heaven is the new earth. Heaven is, you are going to be a physical being. You're going to have flesh and bone. We're going to eat and hug and rejoice and produce and create and discover and explore and write and compose and enjoy music and laughter and eating and everything. We're going to do all those things in bodies that will never die and never feel pain.
So if we never, I'm sorry, if we never die, then are we not allowed to reproduce then?
There are going to be some that do reproduce, because that was the original command from God when he only made reproduction capable through humanity. Did you ever think about that? And the created animal, I should say the creation. So man and woman were told to be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. He did not tell the angels to do that. They were not given the option of reproduction. They were all created in a single event at some point in the distant past. Some rebelled, but the most of them remained faithful to God. God created man and gave him the commandment to reproduce as human beings. And so let's distinguish human reproduction from animal reproduction, since we are sentient beings that can think and reason and, whatever. Not cutting down animals in any way, shape, or form. That's another part of God's creation. But humanity is given the command to reproduce, to make other human beings that have souls that will live eternally. So yes, we are created in God's image to reproduce. And in the new heaven and the new earth, when everything's returned to as it was before sin, man will continue to be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. The book of Isaiah says that the end of his kingdom and his government, or the increase of his kingdom and his government, there will be no end. Well, how does a government increase? Through citizens, through population.
So what happens to all of the people that die before the new earth is created? Are they just like in a purgatory, just waiting?
No. So people that have died up till the time of the new heaven and the new earth are either in the condition of being saved by the blood of Christ and hence are righteous, and they are with the Lord when they die, or they are lost in the sense of rejecting salvation, and they are in a container or a prison called hell, waiting for the final judgment right before the new heaven and the new earth are going to be revealed. And that final judgment of all mankind from the beginning to the end are going to be of those that never accepted whatever God's gift of righteousness was at any given time in history. If they rejected that truth for a lie or whatever, then they will be accountable for their choices. And since God created the eternal fire for the devil and his angels, man chooses to join them rather than being condemned there just because he's man.
So if we're in the new heaven and we're living forever, pretty much, would we still be able to play video games or watch TV or any of that stuff, or we're just, we just have to sit around by the river and eat fruit off trees for the rest of our lives?
Wouldn't that be boring?
It does sound boring, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's not the heaven I picture. I think that's the heaven religion teaches, but that's not the heaven that the Bible teaches. And by the way, since your listeners are so astute, I would strongly encourage anybody that wants to pick up a book called Heaven by the author Randy Alcorn. And he goes into the specifics through the scriptures about what heaven really is. And it's a mind-opening book. That's one plug I'll give for something that somebody else did.
So how would he know what heaven really is? I mean, it's not.
He goes through the scriptures. He goes through the scriptures to show you what God told you about heaven. I mean, come on. If I was going to entice you, Michael, to join me on a vacation to a place you've never heard of, wouldn't you want to see the travel brochure?
Well, no,
I'm just thinking.
I get it. You don't have to sell heaven on me. I'm just trying to think of, how. I mean.
No, I'm just talking about that book that God gave us a description of heaven so that we can know about it and desire to be there. I wasn't trying to necessarily sell you on the idea of heaven.
Yeah.
I'm trying to show you that God gave us a picture of heaven in his word that should convince us it's the place we want to be.
So are we going to be able to play video games or have electricity? Are we going to be living in houses?
Why not?
Or
why not? What would be limited to us if we have sinless bodies that never die, never hurt? Sin doesn't exist anymore, so we can't have a bad thought or an evil motive.
Well, if sin doesn't exist, I mean, you have to kind of admit that sin is fun, right?
Why can't righteousness be fun too? How do you know that what's going to be existing in a sinless world replaces it and is better?
Well, what I'm saying is that, we have video games. What are we going to have Facebook in heaven and it's just everybody being nice to each other?
Well, I don't find people being nice to each other on Facebook. Do you?
Exactly. I know, that's what I'm saying. So if there's no sin, then obviously there's not going to be Facebook. We're not going to have video games where we're like, being the army guy running around blowing up tanks and stuff, right? I mean, that's not going to be heaven, right?
It's a poor analogy, but I'll give you a very weak conception in my mind of what heaven is going to be something like in a secular point of view.
All right.
And it would be Star Trek. In Star Trek, we have gotten rid of money, right? and there's a federation of planets. Now, I realize that there's Klingons and there's evil and there's this and that realm, but there won't be here. But what if God allows us to use our brains to discover warp drive technology and travel to planets? What if he allows individuals to become kings of planets and establish their own, realms for his glory? And what if we're allowed to create music and build buildings and paint paintings and discover and explore wonders like planets entirely made of diamond or gold or something? We have
what would be the point of finding a diamond or gold planet if we're in heaven? I mean, we're not going to use it for anything, right? We don't need it. Doesn't mean anything.
It's for God's glory. It's beautiful. He created it. We're discovering his creation. We're never going to get bored. Look how vast the universe is. There's a reason for that.
Well, that
if we're going to live eternally.
That leads into my next question. That do you think it's possible with the infinite universe that there is, that there are more than one gods?
Again, that would come back to, if that were true, then the Bible is untrue and God would be a liar. So I would say,
well,
no.
Maybe God just doesn't know that there's another God because he's so far away.
Yeah, that would make him not God. If he's God, he's omniscient.
Well, all right. Distortion of Reality wants to know, do you feel the Church of Scientology is just silly?
I don't think the Church of Scientology is a legitimate organization. I'm not going to say what's silly. I'm just going to say that I think it's satanic. And I believe it's controlled by people that would manipulate you and abuse, probably take from you if they could. Much like many other cults, religions do.
All right, Calvin Graham wants to know, what do you make of the prophecy of the popes? A sign of end times or make-believe?
The prophecy of the what?
The prophecy of the popes.
I've never heard of the prophecy of the popes.
Oh, you should Google that. That's an interesting story. I could do a whole show on that.
Yeah, maybe I will. Look, I always take notes when I'm on your show, Michael, because your listeners come up with some stuff that I go and explore later. So yeah, that's awesome. I've never heard of the prophecy of the popes.
Okay, Nahu Ali says, forgive me if I said that wrong. Nuha Ali, whatever. The Son of Mary is just a messenger sent by the one sovereign creator. Christians, if you do not connect with the one sovereign creator, you would follow the Antichrist with no resistance. What do you think of that statement?
I'm not sure I comprehend that statement.
That Jesus
I'm not
is
sure
just
what they're trying to make of that statement.
Jesus is just a messenger.
Yeah, again, if Christ is just a messenger and he's not the only begotten Son of God and very God in man, then God lied and Christ is not worthy of our worship. So, my expertise is in the Bible, not extra biblical things. So I always defer to what the scriptures say. Christ says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh to the Father but by me. Peter said, there's no other name under heaven whereby men might be saved. Christ said, unless you partake of my flesh and drink my blood, you have no life in you. And he's talking about salvation, trusting in him as your Lord and Savior. There is no other messenger ever in the history of the world that was killed and raised from the dead and who paid for sins for your justification. Only Christ did that. Muhammad did not do that. Buddha did not do that. Krishna did not do that. On and on.
All right. So I lost my place, it seems, in the comments. You guys are blowing me up here. It's going so fast. So if I skipped anybody from here to this question, I apologize. Fast says, if sin doesn't exist, how would there be choice?
The choice was already made. The choice was made when you choose to accept God's plan of salvation. Once we're in the new heaven and the new earth where sin doesn't exist, we can't comprehend a world of righteousness because we've never seen it. So we're applying our understanding of the natural world in a sinful condition, a sin cursed creation, with what we can't compare. We can't think anything else would be compared to it. So it's like me trying to say, I've never seen an elephant before, and you're trying to describe it to me. And I'm saying that that's not possible. There's no way an animal could have a trunk that long. You know, all the other animals that have noses, nothing's longer than a couple of inches. So we can't comprehend of a world of sinlessness and righteousness because we've never known it. But again, it's another dimension. It's another realm where there's peace and love and hope and righteousness. So to say that we can't have choice if we don't have sin is like me trying to explain quantum physics when I know nothing about it.
All right, let me ask you this. You think that there's getting into heaven without believing in Jesus?
He is the only means to the Father. Now, let's say all the people
But you
that
don't
have lived
need
before Christ,
need Jesus to talk to God. You can pray to God yourself. You don't have to go through Jesus to talk to God, right?
I'm just telling you what the scripture says. No man has seen the Father at any time. If you've seen me, you've seen the Father. There's no other name under heaven whereby men might be saved. And he's the access to the Father. So as far as I'm concerned, we have access to God the Father through his Son. And people that lived before Christ was even born, if they God the Father, and incidentally, the pre-incarnate Christ appeared on earth several times throughout the Bible. You know, he appeared as the angel Lord, he appeared in the burning bush, he appeared as Melchizedek, the high priest.
You're saying that was all Jesus?
Excuse me?
You're saying that was all Jesus, the burning bush and so on and so forth?
Absolutely. And he was the fourth member of the three that were thrown into the fiery furnace by Nebuchadnezzar. So he's been around a long time. He's the Son of God. He's the creator. When God said, let us make man in our image, who is the we he's talking about? You know, it would be Christ and all the other angel brethren that God made. So they were involved in that council, if you want. And Christ has been around all this time. So he did not appear as the man Christ Jesus until he was born in Bethlehem and grew up to preach in Nazareth and Jerusalem.
You think there's been others
he
since?
Died, no, he is the only Savior. But prior to that, when men died, they didn't know of a Jesus Christ. He hadn't been born yet. So they would have obeyed God to do whatever he said to do, whatever the requirement for righteousness was at the time. Faith was always involved. Well, when those individuals died, they couldn't go to heaven to be with God yet because Christ had not died to pay for sins. So they went into a place in the earth called Abraham's bosom, which is paradise.
All right. So what if you're born in a completely different area of the world and you're raised to believe in, let's take this as an example. Let's just say that you're raised to believe in Allah and the Quran, and you know Muhammad was basically God, I guess, right? That's what Muhammad was. He's God born. That's what they say. And
I don't think they think that he was God.
Oh, all right. Well, I mean, I don't really know.
Okay.
I don't really know the religion.
I'm just saying Islam doesn't teach that Muhammad is God.
But he's talking to God. He's a prophet.
Yeah,
right?
They say he's the messenger of God, but they don't say he's God.
Okay.
They would actually consider that to be, you know, a heretical teaching.
I might be thinking. I'm thinking of Baba.
Okay.
Mara Baba or whatever that guy's name is. But let me get on with my point. And my point being that if you're a human being and you're raised to believe this way, and you're taught that you need to, let's just say, and I know this is going to sound crazy, but you had the 9/11 guys, right? They grew up, they raised, you know, if that indeed happened like they said it happened, they were raised to believe in Allah and the Quran and everything else, and they you know grabbed a hold of those planes and they flew them into the building because that's what God wanted them to do. They believed in God so much and loved God so much that they gave their life for their God. Are they doomed?
So, first of all, God is able to reach any individual with his truth, okay? No matter how deep and dark the deception might be on a person raised, like you said, in a condition where they could never have known anything else. But God is able to reach anybody no matter where they are, from Lower Slobovia to somebody born in deepest Arabia or whatever, okay? But what he says is this. In his Bible, it says, God, the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who hold the truth in unrighteousness. So in other words, if God is going to pour his wrath out on wickedness, he has to be justified to do it, or else it would not be right. Okay. And here's why he can do it. Because that which may be known of God is manifest in them, for God hath showed it unto them. For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even as eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. Because that when they knew God, they glorified him not as God, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened. So you couldn't say those words unless man had an out. He had a hope. He had a means to reach him, and God had a means to reach them. Otherwise, we were just born to be condemned, and that wouldn't be fair. So I say that nobody matches the description of being unreachable. Anybody can know the truth of God, or God is able to reach somebody with an individual if it takes it, to share the truth about Christ to them, no matter where they are.
All right. Do you know who Corn Pop is?
I think Corn Pop is the guy that Joe Biden used to rub the hair on his legs when he was a lifeguard.
He's a bad dude, right? All right. So I have to ask that question. I'm trying to go through the chat looking for questions here. If anybody has any more questions, now would be the time to ask. Well, what about China?
What about China?
Where do they fit it? Where do they fit into all this? I mean, China wants to rule the world, right? I mean, they want to dominate the world. They want to be the only superpower. So how are they going to think about God kind of taking the planet over?
I suspect that every superpower that reached its apex, whether it was, Rome, Spain in the past, Portugal, France, UK, the British Empire, America, Russia, or China, whichever is the top dog or top superpower is because the satanic global elite have decided it's time to move to this entity for this purpose. And they're being directed by these fallen angels. So if the time has come for America to fall because they've served their purpose at empire and world dominion and corruption of the planet, and now it's China's turn to finish it off, or whatever role they might play, then absolutely they'll become the next superpower, or whoever is ordained.
Do you know what the Chinese believe in?
Well, the Chinese government officially is atheist.
Well, yeah. I mean, like, do they have a religion, though?
No, because they're communists. But there are Chinese that are Christians. There are Chinese that are Buddhists. There are Chinese that are Muslim, the Uyghurs or whatever, however you say that.
Yeah.
There are many facets. There's a billion Chinese, so there's many, many religions represented there unofficially, because they're not allowed to really practice religion by the state.
All right. Vash says, how would uncontacted tribes know about God if they don't have the Bible? Now, we know that there are uncontacted tribes around the earth. I mean, we've seen drone videos of these people throwing spears in Amazon. There's an island that I guess nobody can go to. Some guy went to. I remember hearing the story, and he was killed because he showed up trying to be their friend, and they killed him and ate him. I mean, they're out there. I mean, are they just doomed?
So how did they get there in the first place?
Well, they've been there for thousands of years.
Right, but how did they get there?
I guess they were born there, whatever. I mean, they have. I'm sure that they have a religion, but it's probably not Jesus.
Well, my point is they got there through the dispersion of the Tower of Babel. That's when the languages and the different cultures were created. So God separated humanity from that one world unified single language government of Genesis 11 and scattered them abroad upon the face of the earth. So that's how those natives got where they are. And according to the book of Acts, Paul said that God hath made of one blood all nations of men for to dwell on all the face of the earth, and have determined the times before appointed and the bounds of their habitation. So wherever they dwell, they were set there by God. He set the bounds of their habitation, the borders, if you will, for this purpose, verse 27, that they should seek the Lord, if haply they might feel after him and find him, though he be not far from every one of us.
Yeah, but
God actually
you have
scattered
to,
the nations at the Tower of Babel so that men could find him.
but you have to admit that there's people out there, tribes or cultures that haven't ever heard of Jesus, right?
But God separated them so that they could find him. If he's able, he is able to show them the truth. It may not be through a missionary. The Bible says in Psalm 19, the heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. Day unto day uttereth speech, and night unto night uttereth knowledge. There is no language where his voice is not heard. God could reach that person who doesn't know anything about Jesus with his truth, and they could come to know right and wrong. How come, though we're separated by these, remote tribes and things like that, they have rules against murder and adultery and theft? Because they have a conscience, because God gave it to them.
Do you
He's
think
a just God? He knows how to save the utmost.
Do you think the holy wars were a good thing then? Like to have the Knights Templar slaughter people who didn't accept God?
But that's not why they were fighting. That the holy wars were political. That's man and religion controlled by Satan. God had nothing to do with that. He can bring good out of it when man does bad things. But the Crusades were not designed to liberate Jerusalem. There was a political motive involved. It was just as satanic then as it is today.
All right. So where
we got
we
a tainted history.
Yeah. Always a fascinating conversation having you on, man. I love having you on. Thanks so much for coming on to our show, man. Really do enjoy our conversations.
It is always a privilege, Michael. You have such a great group of listeners, and congratulations on the success of your podcast too, because it's really what I'm hoping to accomplish with my own.
So let me ask you this. Is there any hope that humanity can turn this around and rid ourselves of the control by, I guess, the evilness that we're under, or there's no other way but obviously revelation?
So it all just depends on the timing. I believe and teach that we're in or approaching the last days. So, and I could be wrong. And if I'm wrong, it just means I'm wrong. The Bible's still true. Okay. So I'm interpreting things which I see as possibly being the last days. If we are there, then things are going to play out exactly as is written in the scriptures. And there's nothing we're going to do to stop that. Okay. Because our job is not to stop the Antichrist from appearing. Our job is to save as many people as we can with the truth of the gospel. Now, if I'm wrong about the timing of things, there's every possibility that something may occur to turn this around. Like, let's talk about America, for example. And there might be a revolution, or they might be a political shift, or a paradigm shift, or something that can restore liberty and things like that. I doubt that, but it's possible, because if it's not the time of the last days, anything could happen. But I'm putting my faith in not what man can do, because even if they could restore liberty for another 20 years, what's going to happen? It's going to go back down again. We're going to go through those 4 cycles of from chaos to growth, from growth to complacency, and from complacency to revolution again.
Yeah.
And it's just going to be a cycle over and over.
It's every 20 years. I was watching a YouTube video on that. According to the cycle, Generation Z is going to be the one to pull us all out of this.
Yeah, the 4th turning is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Assuming we're not in the last days. Now, if we're in the last days, as it appears to me, since we've got things being put into our bodies that may be designed to reduce the population to a very small number, and they're very open about their desires for that, then it could well be that we're approaching the time of the return of the Lord. So I say to people, since you don't know what tomorrow holds, make sure your salvation now.
Do we have any just a side question I'm going to just throw out there before we wrap up? Do we have any idea, like the blueprints of the Tower of Babel? Is there any way for us to try to rebuild it?
I have no idea if we have any blueprints that remain. That could possibly be something in the hands of the satanic global elites. And maybe that is what CERN is all about, But what ultimately it's a picture of is the end time Babylon, which is Mystery Babylon, the mother of harlots. And that, as far as I'm concerned, is going to be apostate Jerusalem, which looks in the end to be the financial center of the world rather than, say, New York or London or Beijing.
Yeah. How much
I'm
time?
not talking about God's Jerusalem. I'm talking about the apostate Jerusalem.
So we're saying that the end is pretty close. What are you thinking? 10 years? 20 years? 5?
Well, I have my own personal opinions about the formula of it. And I think it kind of hinges around the World Economic Forum's Agenda 2030.
So what are we looking for? Are we actually looking for, are we at the point where we're looking for the alien invasion at this point? Is that where we are?
At least by 2030, possibly. Because we don't know the time that Christ is going to come back, so we can't pinpoint a day.
But you're saying the alien invasion has to happen first.
No. I'm saying the alien invasion or the fallen angel war it's going to run for 3.5 years in heaven before Satan is cast out. I would suggest that the timing of him being cast out might coincide with 2030.
Okay.
And then Christ will return 3.5 years later. So by 2033 could be the return of Jesus Christ. But I don't know that. It's just a guess.
All right.
Men have been predicting his return for centuries, So I'm just one more knucklehead.
All right. Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of, people out there that think that they've got their, I guess, their finger on the date, but who knows, right?
Well, the passages that I use for this are one I cited earlier. A day with the Lord is as 2,000 years, and 1,000 years is one day. And so it's been 2,000 years since Jesus Christ was crucified in the year 33 AD. So 2 days later would be 20, right? And there's a passage in the book of Hosea chapter 6 that talks about Israel returning to the Lord. And they say, come, let us return to the Lord. He hath smitten and he will heal us. He has struck us and we will bind us up. After 2 days, we will live in his sight. And I'm paraphrasing that, but ultimately it looks to me like after 2,000 years might be the time when Israel's going to turn their face back to God as a nation, as a people, and everything hinges upon that. Will they make their confession and acknowledge their offense and seek the Lord's face? That's what we're waiting for.
All right. Any advice you can give the listeners as far as how to get ready and prepare?
Yeah, if you don't already have a savior, trust Christ and believe on him. Just trust that he died for your sins and accept him as your savior. And then start learning what the scripture says. God has so much to tell us, you know. And then I provide all manner of resources at my website, utbnow.com, where you can learn all kinds of things. It's all free. You know, we don't charge for anything. And of course, we have the Bible Mysteries podcast, the Bible Mysteries YouTube channel. And I would like to announce that this coming Sunday on Facebook Bible Mysteries, we're going to have our 1 year anniversary episode. And Michael, we're going to start doing a video podcast after this next week. We're going to start doing not live like you do, but we're going to video record the podcast, and people can still subscribe just as they do now, but they can also see the very same podcast in video format with me and the co-host Zena. And we'll be posting those on our YouTube channel as well.
Awesome. And well, I guess all of the links are in the description box below, but why don't you just tell everybody real quick where they can find you, and we'll call it a day.
Yeah, utbnow.com can get you to anything you want to locate. YouTube, it's the Bible Mysteries channel. If you subscribe to the podcast, just go to your favorite podcast app and search Bible Mysteries. Our logo is the hand holding the red pill, and that's our logo. That's our slogan. Are you ready to take the red pill? And then Facebook Bible Mysteries is another place you can go. We do online Bible studies every Wednesday night and every Sunday morning. And recorded audio messages for now are up at utbnow.com. And we may be changing our format there coming up. We're thinking about a redesign of the website, but for now, you can access anything that's there.
All right. And hang on a second, and I'm going to wrap things up, and you and I will chat a little bit off the show. That's going to do it for us, guys. Make sure you check out the store down below. Grab you some shirts. I'm going to be, I guess, working on some new stuff, and hopefully get some new stuff out there. I was thinking of doing a Corn Pop edition t-shirt for a very limited time to see if anybody wants to get a Corn Pop limited edition Conflict Radio shirt. Maybe we'll do it like every couple of years or something. We'll throw it out there because I know everybody loves the Corn Pop question, so we're thinking about doing that. Remember, you can always find us online. Just go to www.conflictradio.net. You can find us on Apple iTunes and all of your normal podcast catchers. That's going to do it for us, guys. We'll be back on Monday. Vash, Barry, the Druid, Patrick Erickson, Smooth 420, Barry, Ninth Judge, Hugh Darn, Eno Ayak, Desiree, Mick Ranger, the Druid. I think I said that already. Anyway, all of you guys, Paul Beska, all of you guys that have been in here, every single show that we do, thank you so much. Remember, batten down the hatches and be safe.